welcome to Your Soul Wisdom, hosted by Yana Amor Manocas. In each episode, we invite you on a transformative journey delving into the profound mysteries and wisdom of the soul. Join us as we explore a wide array of spiritual topics and sacred practices that nurture and heal the soul, from reincarnation and soul contracts to the enigmatic experiences of womb alchemy and astral travel. Our discussions are designed to enlighten, inspire, and deepen your understanding of your own soul's journey. With Your Soul Wisdom, nothing is off limits. Welcome, everybody. We have a really special episode today and somewhat a little bit unexpected in the most beautiful way. So I want to backtrack as to how we got to this moment. Really, it's all thanks to Nadine. Daniel, the past life regressionist, who we all know at this point, right? He has a podcast, and I had mentioned it to Nadine. And Nadine, who is just the biggest 12-3 energy, who just dives deep into like everything that piques her interest, was listening to all the episodes, and she goes, this was like 2 weeks ago. She says to me, no. When you told me. So 2 weeks ago, she says to me, I love Daniel's podcast, but there's this woman on his podcast, Fally Klein, who is, her 2 episodes are 2 of the best episodes that I've ever heard.
There were 3.
Oh, okay.
Just saying.
Just saying.
More to love.
And so what I did was I messaged Daniel just to let him know, hey, like, here's some beautiful feedback about 2 episodes on your podcast and your guests. Next thing I know, there's this email in my inbox, and it's like Daniel, and he's like, hey, Fally, hey, Yana, get to know each other, have a nice life together. And like, literally, like, that was it. So I was like, clearly,
cool.
I need to meet.
Yeah,
Fally.
very cool.
Let's get her on, right? Nadine's like stamp of approval was enough for me to be like, let's do this. Daniel doubled down. Okay. Fally and I get on a Zoom call, which I think we had planned, I don't know, half an hour. We're like, I'm just going to tell you what I do. You'll tell me what you do. We'll plan some time to do the podcast and like have a nice life. And literally, we get on, and it was just this instant love affair. And Fally, so I say to Fally, you know, here's what I do. I read sound frequency based on your birth name. And she's like, shut up. My husband knows that. My husband, now, is he, tell me what his relationship is with the sound frequencies.
So I'm the one that does the sound frequencies. He's the rabbi. This is you're just speaking our language. Like it's not even something that we do, it's who we are.
Yeah.
And especially since you were talking about a lot about the Hebrew alphabet, and my name is actually one of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So it's always been like a fascination of mine. So the word I described to use our meeting is tumbled. I feel like I just tumbled into some rabbit hole with you and I'm still there.
Yeah. And I think it was like, what, 2.5 hours later, it was like one of us had like an appointment or something that forced us off the phone. But it was just this immediate, like, we've known each other forever. Like, in the words of Amanda, because I did listen to the first episode you had on Daniel's podcast, and something you said, and I was like, oh, here comes Amanda. You said that we are remembering. And that is like Amanda, like if you had like a tagline, like that would have to be part of it, right? And so you're like, we're remembering, and here you and I are having this conversation. Like so unexpected, so beautiful, but it just felt like we've done it before. We've been here before. We've just like, this wasn't the first time of us meeting. It was wild.
Right. And then you listened to the first podcast episode that I had ever done with Daniel, and we were talking about past lives. And I mentioned this random thing that I had hoped to go to a past life in Greece. And you had, that's your background. And I don't even know why I said that. Of all the things I could have said, that was the thing you heard me say on that podcast. And here we are.
It's so wild. It's so wild. Yeah. Okay, Nadine, what was it about Fally's episodes where you were like, I need Like it was so good. What was it?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you cut out, everybody cut out. I'm so sorry, you guys. So, with the episodes that I listened to, I think it was more just like your essence and your energy that I was so drawn to. Like, I'm certain that of all the views he's had on your, yes, 3 podcasts, I'm probably 50% of them. I think I've listened to all of them like many, many multiple times. I was listening to it again this morning. But it's just, I will admit that there was one, I can't remember which one it was, but the way you spoke about the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, that is definitely my jam. The Ten Commandments is my personal rabbit hole.
Okay, let's get
Yeah.
into it. Let's go.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's.
I don't even know why
Well-
that makes me emotional, but
Yeah, I'm feeling emotional watching you get emotional. Wow. Yeah, where to
Yeah,
start? Tell me
that was
more
just,
about what about it turned you on?
well, I think because as a child growing up, like I was raised Roman Catholic, and there were so many aspects about being raised that way when it came to actually being in religion class and being at church, that so much just really didn't resonate for me. And although I could reflect on the 10 Commandments and it made sense to me, there was still like that underlying, like, why? Like, how do I connect this? Like, why this thing over say something else? And then hearing you speak about it and how one basically like flows into the other, and you can't like get to the next one without what comes before it. And I was just like, it really felt like an unfurling for me, where like I finally felt like I could open up and it finally made sense.
You're gonna have me cry in public.
Let's all of us cry.
And it's not even I don't know, it just really touched me in a way that I didn't expect, and everything really just landed. And like I said, just your essence and the way you spoke, and I was like, where has this woman been? I'm like, this is the type of teaching, this is the way that I've wanted to learn. And it just like kind of fell out of you in a way that was so natural, and it really made sense. Um, yeah, I just felt very connected in a way that like you would think like through a podcast, it just made no sense. And I finally went and I looked up your website. I was like, what can I like, how much more can I learn from this woman? And it's been sitting open on my desktop and on my phone for at least 7 months now. Like,
No way.
just no way.
And my website doesn't really tell you anything about who I
Nothing.
am and
It
what I,
doesn't.
nothing.
No,
No, and I think it
Fally.
was just like an energetic thing, just having it there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
someone just told me it's like my real estate on the internet. Like you have to have an address where people can send you mail. So I had pushed off making a website for many years until I heard that line. And then I'm like, okay, what the heck? It's just a place where people can knock on my door on the internet. Otherwise, they're
Yeah.
going to be knocking on my door here. And I don't want that because I'm an introvert. Please don't talk to me ever.
Yes.
But
Okay.
yeah, the Ten
Fally.
Commandments thing. Yeah.
Okay, yes, get into the 10 Commandments. And then I want you to also share a little bit about what you do, because, of course, as soon as I mentioned, I know you're like, where do I begin? But as soon as I mentioned you to our other researcher, Rachel, but I was like, what's the name I'm going for here? Rachel.
Yeah.
She got on your website. She's like, I got on a waiting list, but I really don't even know exactly what I'm on the
I
waiting
don't
list
even
for.
know what it is. I've listened to your meditation
Okay.
a few times. I'm like, Nadine, I'm not good with the podcasts. And, you know, Farley, I cannot, like, I just want to say that I've never thought about this in this scenario. But when you said that you have a letter in your name, or one of your names is a letter, Yana said this to me before, but I've never really understood it until now that so do I.
Yeah. So,
Rachel Gimmel.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Wow. I never would have, I didn't know how you pronounced your
Is what
last name.
No, I know. And so now, anyway, so I'm also fascinated to hear your version of having a letter in your name so that maybe I can understand
Yeah.
a version of me. So second question,
And
after
Gimel
the
is
10
one of my
Commandments coming up.
letters. I
Mhm.
was born on the third day of the third month of the year in the Hebrew calendar. So I'm a Gimel, which is because Gimel is 3. So yeah, wow. And so my name, the name that you call me by Fally is it's my Hebrew name, and it's the reverse pronunciation of the letter Aleph. So Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew
Yeah.
alphabet. To say that backwards would be Fella, and that's my Hebrew name. Because Aleph on its own, the way you would spell it is masculine, so it's not a name that you would give a little girl. Then again, you wouldn't give Fella to a little girl either, but it's a family name, and I love it. I was talking to Yana when we met, and I had said that on some level, it's a very strange name to give a child because it's not a name, it's an element. Aleph is an element of creation. It's a little bit of a difficult name to carry if you're attuned to the frequency of the name, but I feel like it was very much the right name for me, and it's always been a thing for me. You know, some kids don't like being called that weird name. They stand out. I was always like, I love it. You know, there was once in my life, just once, where I switched schools, and it was that awkward teenage, I was 12-ish, yeah. And I was switching schools, and I came up with this super mature decision that I was going to go by my middle name because Fally, I was just done. And my middle name is Tzipora, which in Hebrew, the Hebrew language means little bird. And when we switched schools, the principal told my parents, does she have another name? And they said yes. And they said, yeah, there are already 3 Tzipporas in the class. She can't be the 4th. So that was the end of my foray into having a more common name, at least in my community. And I'm super grateful. I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, let's talk about the 10 Commandments. So Nadine, I'm very similar to you. I actually just sent out an email to my mailing list about how I got suspended from school the first week of my junior year because one of my teachers came into the class and she did this thing every year. I just didn't know because I don't have older siblings. So she just would walk in. Everyone knew this teacher for this lesson. She would walk in the first day. She picked one kid, usually the kid that sat in the center of the class. And she says, do you love God? So I sit in the center of the class because my English, alphabetical order, my last name put me right in the center. She picks me. She picked the absolute worst kid because I was a little bit, are we allowed to say like shitless? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to be, but my cousin had been killed about a month before in a car accident. My family was reeling. We weren't in a good place, And then I start school. I'm supposed to be this normal kid. And she goes, do you love God? And I'm like, no. And she doesn't know what to do because she's been teaching for like 30 years and she's never had a kid on the first day of school tell her no. So she's a little flustered and she says, no. And I said, no, I'm 16. I mean, I don't know anything about God. And also, if I would have said yes, you probably would have spent the next portion of the lesson trying to disprove me because I'm 16 and I know nothing. So I'm saving you the time. I don't love God. Go ahead, teach your lesson. So then she says, I guess this is totally derailing her. So she says, do you follow his commandments? I mean, you're religious, right? And I'm like, yeah, I follow his commandments. And she says, well, why? You don't love God. And I said, the same reason I do your homework. And so I was suspended.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. And I didn't even mean it in a bad way. I wasn't looking to be disrespectful. I was just kind of the way you were describing it, Nadine. I was like, I want. I care. I'm here, but you're not giving me this. You're not lighting me up. And then a couple of days later, I got into another fight with another teacher that was a complete accident, wasn't looking to fight with her. She just kind of made this comment how we were going to all marry Torah scholars. Like we're all going to marry rabbis. And it's a virtue in my community. I'm an Orthodox Jew. And I was like, I'm not. And she tells me, she was so shook. And she tells me, why? I said, because if you read the Bible commands Adam to go out to work and support his family. The Bible doesn't say girls have to marry rabbis. I don't want to marry a rabbi. I want to marry a man who's going to take care of me and my children and my family. So that was another thing where she started yelling that I hate, I'm a blasphemer. I don't know, that I hate, the Torah. And I was like, I'm not. I'm literally quoting it for you. So when I left school, I wasn't anti-religion, but I was anti-learning. I was kind of like, I'm really done. I'm okay living a religious lifestyle, mostly because I did end up marrying a rabbi, totally unexpected, unintentional. He wasn't a rabbi when I met him. I didn't dream he was going to become a rabbi. We met because he visited me in the hospital when I had cancer and he offered to donate blood for me. So we had this like epic little love story. But yeah, I was like, I'm done. I'm going to live a religious life mostly because I don't want God to hate me, but I don't actually care enough about it because I've learned everything there is to know, and you're not giving me anything. And it was only much, much later when I was having kids and I had to revisit my Judaism for them. Because if I was going to put them into religious schools, I have to figure out, why was I doing that? I mean, public school is free. Why don't I send them there? And here I had to recommit to my Judaism in a whole new way. So I started learning from the basics, like we would say, from the olive base. I had to learn from the ground up. I had to come in assuming I knew nothing. And I started with more basic things. And the more basic I went, the more I realized even that's too advanced. And I had to go down, 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 literally to the Hebrew letters of the alphabet. And when it came to the 10 Commandments, this was an evolution that I think it came at me from a bunch of different places. I can't even speak to how this thing came together, although I think it's still coming together, and I'm learning more and more things as time goes on. But to give you over the flow in brief, in the Hebrew language, it's not called the 10 Commandments. They're called the Aseret HaDibros. And in Hebrew, if you translate that, Dibros are not commandments. They're the 10 words of God. So in the English language, when you say, I give you my word, it means I give you my promise. And commandments is a completely different word in the Hebrew language. The word for commandment is mitzvos. Now we have 613, as Jews, we have 613 mitzvos. Those are the commandments. Those are the things we actually do. The 10 commandments are not commandments. They're God's promises. And he says, and our tradition teaches us that God also went out to all the nations, and he offered all of the nations to take on the 10 commandments. And all of the nations said no. And then, but if you look at the 7 Noahide laws that all the nations do follow, they are legitimately the 10 commandments. It's the same thing. 7 out of the 10 commandments are the 7 Noahide laws. So it's kind of like, what is happening here? What actually happened to the Jews at Sinai? What was going on that actually made them different? And through my research, or through my own developing and understanding, don't quote me, because I'm not quoting anyone. This is just my journey. I realized God created the world with a certain vision. And it takes time for a vision to come to life, And at a certain point, there was this pinnacle of creation. The pinnacle of creation was when God was ready to reveal the source codes of creation. And the source codes of creation were these 10 utterances, not the utterances, sorry. There are also 10 utterances. If you go into Genesis, there are 10 utterances through which God created the world. These are the 10 words. These are more how God sustains the world. Totally different topic. And what God was saying is, I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom, because the world tends to go out of balance. It oscillates, right? We have entropy and dystrophy. We go, right? I'm saying it right? I don't know, right? We go in and out. And he says, I'm asking a nation, which of the nations would like to be my gatekeepers, would like to download my framework for how I intended the world to run, and to commit to keeping that world in alignment. That's all. And he went to all of the nations who were anyway keeping the 7 Noahide laws. And all of them were like, no, we got this. We're doing the laws, but we don't want to take responsibility for gatekeeping the entire world. And the Jews, because the Jews, if you give them something for free, they'll take extra. They'll just like, yeah, we'll do it, So that's what it was. So when I look at come on, it's so true though. So I look at, yeah.
No, go ahead.
So when I came up with that realization, what I realized was it's just, we're custodians. If we're custodians, the one God actually gave us was a manual. It's the source code for creation. So when I started looking at the 10 commandments as a manual, I asked myself, okay, we're troubleshooting. What are we troubleshooting? We're troubleshooting creation. What gets out of alignment in creation? When something becomes out of alignment in creation, we go to the source code, we go to the manual, and we troubleshoot. So in the last few years, anytime a problem has been coming to my attention, right? Whether it's a client sharing the story that they're going through, or something that I'm facing in my own life, or, the world stage, I try to see if I can trace it back and bring it back to that source code, because it's my theory, right? If the 10 commandments are a source code, can I find it? Can I find it in the 10? And what would the world be like if we can go back to those source codes, just align ourselves with those? And remember, these are not commandments. It's not, no one is telling you, you got to do this or we're going to smite you. It's just like, you want to just you want to thread that way back up so that you can untangle those kinks in the chain. And then you set yourself free by virtue of doing that. So yeah, but Yana, you wanted to say something. I'll go through the 10 commands really quickly, but I wanted to hear what you had to say first.
Well, it's a little bit of a side note because you mentioned something that brought back memory where you said like you see the code. And so something we had talked about was that you are actually able to look at somebody and you see the codes that are going through them and what's going on with their health and how that plays out in their life, right?
Yep.
You have to talk about that because I'm still trying to like now when people talk to me, I'm at the point now where with my soul contract work and the Hebrew letters and all of that, I like you speak to me and I just hear or I like see, I envision the frequencies that are playing out. You do that in such a different way where you're able to look into somebody's health and life. So I really need you to talk about that.
Okay, so I'll tell you where I got that from. So I have something, some form of synesthesia where most people think you have 5 senses. For me, they're not really 5. I think they just become one thing. It gets worse as I get older. You know, if people knew me as a kid, they wouldn't necessarily think that I was a sensory kid. I learned how to really block it out very early on. As I got older and as I kind of immersed myself more into this emotional work, it definitely exacerbated that for me. But to answer your question, Yana, if you go into Genesis, and this really only works if you're studying it in the original Hebrew. So in the original Hebrew, it says, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashemayim va'aretz. In the beginning, it was created by God, the heavens and earth. Now, in the Hebrew language, the word the is extra. It's not necessary. If you would, the verse would read just as well if they didn't have the word the in it. And one of the things we say about Torah is that Torah is written very concisely. There are no extra words. Anytime there's an extra word, it's not extra. There's something there. So to go back, it says, Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning God created, es. And that word, the, es means the, et means the. It's 2 letters, aleph and tav. That's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So what God actually created in the beginning was he created the alphabet. He created the letters. And only then did the first emanation, the first utterance of God, you know, where he said, and there shall be light, but it couldn't be said until there were the letters. So the first thing God created were letters. And everything in creation comes down to these 22 letters. It's all some configuration of letters. And this really only works, again, if you know the Hebrew alphabet, but I'll give you an example that translates really nicely into English. So in the Hebrew alphabet, the letters, there are 3 letters, Pei, Resh, and Dalet. Together, in this order, Pei, Resh, Dalet, it means afraid. I'm sorry, it means separate. It means to separate. In the English language, the word afraid has the center letters is FRD, which is the same as the Hebrew Pei, Resh, Dalet. Think about when you are afraid, when you feel separate from God. So all of the Hebrew language is codes that come back to creation. There are any word in the Hebrew language that you look at, it's never just a word. You know, in English, you'll say, oh, this is a table, right? And we've all kind of agreed that this particular sound means this thing that we eat food on, right? We all said so. But is there a reason? Is there a meaning to these syllables? Is there a history? Is there something about the word table that actually means table? But in the Hebrew language, if you study the alphabet, if you study the aleph beis, the word for table has just mysteries and like you completely understand why the word for table in Hebrew is the word for table, because it actually denotes what a table is. So yeah, when I engage with people, Sometimes I see it. I can see the codes in them. The way I describe, I never talked about it out loud because it's part of my weird side. I know many sides of me are weird, but it's part of the thing that I'm just like, oh, this is weirder than usual. It's like, when you watch The Matrix.
We are beside ourselves with excitement,
Yes,
just so you know.
we are.
Like these just
It's our dream come true, Farley. You have no idea. We are wanting this.
So the thing is that my kids, I have 3 teenagers, and they just realized that if you Google mommy's name, a bunch of podcasts come up, and I'm starting to be conscious of they're going to hear this, and then I'm going to have to answer to them. They think I'm a normal person. But yeah, sometimes I see it, like if you ever watch The Matrix and there's like streams of letters of code, sometimes I see that. I can see that a lot, specifically in people's hair. Men, especially who grow beards, there's very special letters that contain, it's different. You can see where the sideburns end and the beard begins. And the beard also tells me a lot about their sexuality, their fertility, their manhood. I know, guys, you don't have to look me in the eye next time you see me, but there's a lot we can tell just by virtue of how the hair grows, and you can see the codes in that. One of the things that Yana and I spoke about when we met was one of the reasons married Jewish women cover our hair is because the codes, there's a lot of spiritual coding in our hair. So after we marry, we kind of reserve that for our spouses and for our family life.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just jump in and ask a question? One, what about men that can't grow beards or men that don't have beards? Where do you see the coding? Is it still in their hair, or where
men
is it?
that can't grow beards
Yeah.
usually have some sort of fertility issue.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's it's, again, I can't make a blanket statement. There are no blanket statements there. And just because a man chooses to shave his beard doesn't change the nature of his beard. It doesn't change the nature of, his coating. It's just not visible. But yeah, usually, again, no blanket statements, but men with lower sperm counts tend to have more sparse. And it's not just sparse, they're a little finer, the hair as well. Again, no blanket statements because there's a lot, like Yana can probably tell you also with the Hebrew letters, they work in combination. So your name is going to have many many letters, and you have to kind of see how they combine. So it's never one thing. It's a mixture of them all. But another code is the voice. The way we channel our voice, it's because God is in your breath. Nadine, you probably heard me say this on the podcast, is that the tetragrammaton, which is the gods in the Hebrew language, the Hebrew culture, God's 4-lettered name, which we do not pronounce. It's the Y, the H, the W, and the H. We call it the ineffable name. It's not that we don't pronounce it. You can't, because it's a Y, an H, a W, and an H. So it's the sound of a deep breath. Yeah. So what I realized is that one of my passions, Yana wants me to talk about what it is I actually do. I've studied breathwork for many years. It fascinates me. And one of the things that I've noticed is when I listen to people's breath, I can hear, because it's powered by God or godly essence, I can hear where the breath goes in the body, where it bounces, where it touches, where it doesn't. And it tells me a lot about the person, what they've been through, what's going on for them. And that is in the 10 Commandments as well. This coding of the voice is in the 9th commandment. It talks about the voice. So all of this comes down again to our source codes. And I'm still figuring it all out.
Can you just explain how it's in? Can you just use a few more words to explain how the voice is in the 9th commandment, just to give us an example?
Go through the commandments like you were going to.
Yes, just do that. I'll go through the top. This is the most disjointed conversation I have ever had. Thank you.
Oh, no.
We're loving it.
Not for us.
Wait, hold on. And before you continue, to give you full context, Fally, every single one of us here, except for Kylie, has actually had the study and the understanding of all the Hebrew letters and how they play out. So when you and I on the call, when I pulled up the charts and I said, you've got these frequencies and here's how they play out, every one of us know exactly how that happens because we've all had that beautiful training. So you're speaking all of our language. Kylie's just like, I'm just going to smile on, make
Kylie and her smile again.
I don't know. But yeah, so
That's
there is,
awesome.
everyone is, yeah, we're right there with you.
You know, I never know because my work has taken me to so many different
Yeah.
stages all over the world, and I never know who my audience is. I never
Right.
know what they know. So yeah, that's awesome. Okay, fine. Let's go to the 10 words, right? God is saying, I give you my word. And the first word is, and they're not 10 things. Just to give you a little bit of like a backtrack, when I was studying past life regression, because that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, it's one of the things that I've done, do, whatever, teach. When they regressed me to my first ever womb experience, and I went into that phase of, I was this little fetus, I was a soul deciding why I was coming and what I intended to do here. The teacher who had regressed me, and they were using me as a demo, so they were doing this in front of the class. He asked, "Do you know why you came?" And I got really worked up and I said, yes, I came for knowledge, awareness, and healing. And then I started crying. And they were asking me why I'm crying, and I couldn't get to myself. I was really beside myself. And I said, because it's not 3 things. And I said, in your language, and I don't know what I was saying because I speak English, but I was trying to say, in your language, in English, you need 3 words for this. But in my language, where I come from, they're one thing. Knowledge, awareness, and healing are one thing. It's kind of like the more you know, they're not, you know, in the closest thing we have in the English language is interdisciplinary, right? Is that they kind of link up, but there's no, and what I've been searching for ever since then were source codes, right? The source codes that kind of work on every level of creation. And for me, the 10 Commandments was that, right? 10 Commandments and the Hebrew alphabet. The 10 Commandments are not 10, they're one. They're one that are divided into 10 facets. We also say this about the emanations of God. There are 10 emanations of God. God is one, but it's like looking at God through a prism. And depending on which side of the prism you're standing at, you're seeing a facet of one thing. So the 10 Commandments are 10 facets of one thing, which is the alignment of the entirety of creation. So it starts with the first, which is I am God. Like that is it. That's all you need to know. And if that's the only thing you know, all the other commandments are kind of enveloped in this first one. I am God. And you know, it continues. I'm the God that took you out of Egypt. So I'll be honest with you. My expression or my experience of the 10 Commandments is not even with the full 10 Commandments, because the 10 Commandments are longer than just their first sentence, right? Like, I am God. It continues. There's a lot more. Like, I'm the God who took you out of Egypt. And I'm so excited about that because it means that there's so much more that I haven't finished delving into. So there's more to this, but we'll start with a basic framework. I am God. If you embodied this so completely, if you truly understood this and lived it, the second commandment, which says there will be no other gods, is obvious. It's so obvious. You wouldn't have to think about it. It just naturally progresses into the second one. And what there shall not be other gods means you won't worship anything. You won't worship money. You won't worship people. You won't worship society, image, ego. They'll be irrelevant because your whole yearning will be for the one God that there is. The third commandment is you shall not take God's name in vain. And the God's name that's mentioned, because God has many names, many facets, the name of God that's mentioned in the third commandment is the Tetragrammaton, the YHWH. When I came to this understanding that every breath is God's name, because when I was a kid, I was in school and I was like, what does it mean? Like, you shall not blaspheme, you know? Like, I don't know, I don't blaspheme on the regular. And, you know, if you drop like a 4-letter word, it's still not God's name. So I don't really know what that means. I just didn't really know what it meant. And our teachers would say, well, the do not curse. And I'm like, but that's not God's name, you know? Or do not use God's, like the teacher would say, don't say God damn it. I'm like, that's a little, like God had to waste a whole commandment on not saying God damn it. Like, you know? Like really, this has to be bigger than just that. So when I got the awareness that God's name is the breath, then what God is actually saying is, don't use a single one of your breaths in vain. Stay mindful, stay present. Every moment matters. Every breath you take is important. It's life force energy. And if you and obviously, if every breath matters, then every word matters. because you can't speak without breathing. So words are powerful. Change the way I speak, change the way I deliver my content. It's so important. Words really manifest. So if you understand that the third commandment says, be present with every breath because I am in every breath, be mindful. Then comes the next commandment, which is keep the Sabbath. But what it says is, it doesn't say keep the Sabbath. It says keep the day, zachar et yom, keep the day of the Sabbath holy. So if you read it well and you read it like you really look into the reading, it doesn't say keep Sabbath, keep the day as a Sabbath, which means, yes, as Jews, we keep the seventh day and we have really like important distinctions about the laws and the things that we do and the things that we don't do. And it's beautiful. But if you go straight up according to the commandments, it says, keep your day, be mindful, be present, stay here, find God in everything, right? And that would make every one of your days holy. That's what God is saying. I know this world that I created. I know this world where we're full of distractions. Because again, if you're not connected to the one God, you start serving your cell phone and your money and all of those other things. You're completely disconnected from your breath. You're completely disconnected from presence, right? So that brings us into number 4, which then brings us into number 5, which is honor your father and mother. And that one, I could spend an entire day just talking about that one. Because I mean, which one of us doesn't have mommy and daddy issues? I think we're only here because we've been working through our issues for so long. Mom and dad, if you're listening to this, I love you. I have to. They don't listen to any of my podcasts. It's fine. When I was a kid, if I started talking, because I'm one of many siblings, and I would start talking, my father would just roll his eyes and say, who put the quarter in? So, because, yeah. So I just learned to keep my opinions to myself. And then a few weeks ago, like 2 months ago, someone walked into my office. One of my friends walked into my office and plunked down this little container of quarters.
Oh my
And they were like, Fally, I just want you to talk
Cute.
forever. And this just sits next to my computer all the time. So yes, but anyway, honor your father and mother. So there's no word in the Hebrew language for honor. It's not a concept for us. The word in the Hebrew language that we use, it's kaved. It actually means weight. Kaved means heavy. So it means gravity. Gravity is a better word. So when we say honor your father and mother, it isn't honor, it is respect the gravity of your elders, of where you have come from, and honor that, because you would not be here, you would not be you would not exist if not for, and who was it? Rachel, you said you had listened to the meditation on my site. So that's what this meditation is built on. If you go to the homepage of my website, there is a meditation built on this, on honoring the gravity of where you've come from, all of your ancestors, in all of the, however many years of creation you count, right? In the Jewish calendar, we count 6,000. So in 6,000 years of creation, it all led to you right here. And it doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter if they're wonderful people, if they're terrible people. It doesn't matter if you know who your parents are. It doesn't matter if you were born through an ugly circumstance like rape. It's a horrible thing to say, but the thing is, 6,000 years of creation brought you here. And that's what the 5th commandment is saying. If you want to live the most embodied life, because we're going back to embodiment and presence, right? You need to honor those that came before you, because they are a direct lineage to the first being that was literally given life through God breathing breath into his nostrils. So that's where you come from. And that's all on the first side. That's the God side of the commandments. And, we always ask, why are the parents on the God side of the commandments? Because parents are your link to the presence of all that is. So then comes the next one, right? And the 6th commandment is, you shall not commit murder. And I was like, that's a jump. You go through all these nice things and then you're just like, don't kill anybody. And I would be a kid in school and being like, I don't know, I never considered it. It wasn't something that I was thought to put on my resume, but sure. And that's also, I think that's the one that really got me questioning a lot. The first 5 I can deal with, but when it comes to do not kill, it's like, I don't know. There are so many different things that make me Jewish. This is the thing, like, tell me to eat kosher, right? Tell me to do something very Jewish that all Jews are known for, but like, do not kill. It's like it's not a thing that I would have considered. So the thing is, it doesn't actually say do not kill. There's a different word for kill in the Hebrew language. What the 10 commandments say is do not murder. It's very different different. Killing is different. Killing is, you go to war. Jews have gone to war throughout the ages. Killing is, we actually have a commandment that if someone comes to kill you, you are obligated to kill them first. You have to protect yourself at all costs. Murder is the snuffing out of life for senseless reasons, right? So we believe that we shouldn't snuff out, we shouldn't pluck out blades of grass for no purpose, right? So we'll cut flowers to beautify our tables for beauty, right? But there has to be a reason. You don't just murder, you don't just cut off life for no reason. And even that's why we have all of these laws about our dietary laws. So we will eat animal products, but we're very careful about which animals and how we slaughter them. They have to be done in a humane manner, right? So do not murder. I never understood how that connects to honor your father and mother. And then the more I started doing this work, right? The work that we're all invested in, our emotional work and our growth, I realized I am a 50-50 mix of my parents. I got my height from one, I got my eye color from another, I got my sense of humor, right? All of this is from my parents. If there's something in my parents that I cannot accept, I don't have to like it, but if I cannot accept it, that thing lives inside of me. That means I can't accept a part of myself. It's like saying, kill off your brown eyes or kill off your square chin. It's just something, but we do that to our personality all of the time, right? My narcissistic parent, I don't want to be anything like them. So you kill off that part of yourself that has needs, has an ego. So when you've committed murder, when you've cut off your life force inside of yourself, then that makes you capable of doing that outside. And if that's extreme, it is extreme, but not really, because what would make someone capable of considering murder, right? First, they have to cut off some form of life force inside of themselves to be able to see someone else or something else as less than worthy of life. So first you did that to yourself. Only then can we go on to do not commit adultery. Well, think about what adultery is. Adultery is you're not 100% of the relationship. You say you're in the relationship, but a big part of yourself is somewhere else. Well, of course, you've committed murder. You are not showing up. But going back to the beginning of the commandments, where it's all about being present with every breath, with every moment. So if you're not present in your relationships. So it's not just do not commit adultery. It's like you shall not. Think about also the language in the commandments. It doesn't say do not do this. It says you shall not do this. That's future tense. Isn't that interesting? It's telling you if you live by these principles, you will not. Not do not do this. It's not a commandment. You will not come to adultery because you're so present. You are fully present in all of your relationships. The next commandment is do not steal. Except it's not really do not steal. Again, so much of this comes back to really truly understanding biblical Hebrew and what those words actually mean on all layers. So that word doesn't mean do not steal. It means do not kidnap. Don't take another human. Well, that's what we do all the time when we're not present in our relationships or we're not present in our relationship with ourselves. We become codependent or narcissistic. So we steal bits and pieces from other people. We put them on pedestals. We have projections. We have transference. We create stories around people. I'm not in a relationship with you. I'm in a relationship with a piece of you that serves me. And I ignore the rest of you. So that's do not steal. So we're up to number 8. Now, Rachel, we come to number 9. So number
Loving the full
9
story.
says, number 9 says, again, in the Hebrew language, this doesn't translate very well into English. It says, Lo sa'ane v'reacha eid shaker. You shall not answer for your friend a false witness. So answer doesn't really mean answer. It means, it's not answer as in the Hebrew language answer. It's just don't represent, right? But it doesn't say don't lie. It doesn't say there don't lie. It would be so simple. God just says don't lie, right? It doesn't say don't lie. It says don't bear false witness. But again, it doesn't say don't bear false witness. It says don't answer. To answer, you have to use your voice. So what happens if you go by what I told you before about your breath, your voice giving me an indication of where you live inside of your body, how embodied you are, then what happens is if you've cut off parts and pieces of yourself, you know what your voice sounds like? Your voice sounds like this. You're not even in your body. It's super high, it's super fluffy. Oh my God, this is amazing. Like everybody that you meet today on Instagram, this is how they talk. And you think they're being super friendly. Are these really spiritual teachers? they talk a lot like this.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, where
Great
are
dad.
you? You're not
Oh.
here, right?
Mm.
And they're saying all of these beautiful things, but they're not here. And
Yeah.
there's something about it, like you're resonating with the words that they're saying, but you can't connect to them long term because they're not here. And that's why it says don't answer for your friend false witness. It's about being embodied. So when you stand in front of your friend and you talk like this, or you're like, come over here, you're not there. So you're bearing false witness about who you are. You're showing up to the world in a
See?
different way.
See, that's why I really
Fally-
love my voice.
There you go. See, Amanda, you can't fake it.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
really quickly, the
Fally,
funny thing. Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Lauren.
Well, it's just really interesting when you talk about that, because when I do healing work with people,
Yes.
I can hear things in their voice. So
Yeah.
if they're
Mm.
telling
Yeah.
me something, I'm like,
Correct. Yeah.
no, it's not it. Like, let's keep
Yeah.
going, and then as soon as I hear it, I'm like, that's it. I was having this conversation with Rachel yesterday. So I find this so fascinating because it's helping me understand what I'm actually doing there. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not
Very
only
And
So I
that.
was going to say as well, can I just jump in? I was going to say as well that
Mm.
that was it a couple of weeks ago, just last week we spoke. And I was saying that in listening back to the podcast, I did not realize my voice was so damn deep. I said, and I sound different. It's almost like I'm just a different person speaking. And I thought, I'm always saying to myself, that doesn't sound like me. It just doesn't sound like me. I don't know where that voice has come from. It's like, it's very deep. So it's very interesting. I do think that when I'm doing my work, or when we're doing the podcast, we come together, it's almost like something happens, something very different happens. So like the first time when I listened to the podcast and saw myself, it was almost like I was like, who is that person? It was a very strange feeling. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
and
interesting. Food for thought.
if I listen back to older interviews that I've given, my voice changes completely. And I used to feel very awkward around that. Like, oh, I hate my voice from 5 years ago. It's not awkward. It just proves my point that the more I do this work, you can tell. I can give you 5 different recordings of me, and you will very easily be able to put them into chronological order. You're going to hear my voice get deeper. I teach a breathwork training, and it is amazing how it's a year-long training that I teach, but in the course of the year, there are 3 full weeks that we spend together, right? So we do a week in May, and then a week in September, and then a week in January. At the end of our week together, all of our voices have changed. We've spent 5 days becoming so embodied. And I was actually just going over some of the recordings because I'm about to jump into my next module. So I was going over the recordings of the last module. And on one of the last recordings, I'm sitting next to somebody and I'm like, oh my God, your voice keeps changing. And I'm commenting on that on the video. I'm like, this is so weird. I feel like I'm sitting next to a stranger. But going back to the 10 Commandments, it brings us to our last one. And our last one is you shall not covet. And that's one I also never understood, because how can God tell you what to feel? Your feelings belong to you. So how can you say, don't covet? You're going to judge me for what I feel inside of my heart. I can't help it. But again, God is not saying, do not covet. He's promising you something. He's saying, you shall not covet. So if you're really in alignment with all of this that emanates from, I am your God, if you live that way, you would desire nothing. You would never covet. And what I find is that in this world that we live in, most of our clients, right? Most of the people that come to us, they start out with they're coveting something, right? Like the 12 steps, they start with, you shall not covet. The 12 steps people covet whatever their addiction is, and then they go into the 12 steps. That takes them hopefully beyond coveting. My theory is much simpler. What if I don't have to make you stop coveting? What if I can go backwards and find out where in the 10, right, where we lost track? And if we can come back to that, and it's not a religious thing. This is not a religious program. This is more, Nadine, you're nodding, so you get this. It's the codes of creation. If we can align our families and our values and meditate and come back to presencing and come back to our breath, we will heal without having to, stop drinking cold turkey and get yourself 1 million sponsors and go to 6 AA meetings a week. I think AA is exceptional and it's saved millions of lives. but also we had something before the 12 steps. We had the 10 steps. And if people understood more, especially because I live a religious lifestyle, so many people are sick and tired of religion because they grew up in these systems that are very closed boxes, and they didn't learn it like this. They learned it as in you must. But what if they understood that it's a privilege, that people are spending millions of dollars in therapy to learn something that they already had and they already knew, they just need to see it with new eyes, right? So yeah, that's my spiel on the 10. Oh, and then there's more. Hold on, because you're busy with the sound frequencies. And there's more. If you sign up right
I was
now.
just like, my life's been changed forever. I've had full
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
chills for the last, however long, and that is it. Like, okay, keep going, go.
Also, not what I was going to say, but I will tell you this because you're such a all over the map. You're from so many different places. One of the things that I found out is that if you want to copy an accent, right, the first thing you have to master is how they say in that language. Yeah, because we all say it different, right? So Australians would be like they're in the back of their throat, right? British, you're a little further back, you're here, and Americans are all in the cheeks, right? So think about it. If you all say right?
Let's try it. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Like
Okay,
the
my
English
Americans.
people- So English people say
Yeah.
right? With an E.
Yeah.
So
Dude, Amanda.
hold on a minute.
Okay,
So-
Amanda, you go.
Oh,
Amanda,
but
Amanda,
the
go.
difference is that, say, like in the UK, well, in the UK, let's just say London, even in, say, London, you've got you've got South London, East London. So South Londoners have quite a strong accent. East Londoners do as well. North Londoners don't really, they're kind of like, it's just, yeah, sorry, North Londoners, but yeah, it's a bit kind of nothingness, kind of really.
Nothingness.
Yeah, it's like you would know somebody from South and you definitely know somebody from East London. So it's different. So we all pronounce words differently. So how do you spell that? Is it?
So the focal point of anyone's dialect is how they say So you have the deep
okay.
right? Americans would be like
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
Yeah.
right?
Ahaha. Okay.
Where else are we from? Go for it, guys.
Well, there's 3 Australians.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
are.
I think
Say you're up.
So,
Take it away.
I say
Back of throat.
Yeah.
Sorry, my voice went up there. Clearly, I was not in my body.
And then we got one Canadian, Nadine from Canada. Say you're up.
I'm probably same as American.
Yeah.
But,
M.
No, it's a
Little
little bit
flatter.
different, isn't it?
A little flatter.
Yeah. Well, this is
Right?
fun.
tell you what, fella, you've
then
got a
it's kind-
very tuned ear to be able to even discern this.
Yeah.
So
Phenomenal.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
But
I'm
then
like,
isn't Kylie?
oh yeah, this will be interesting to
Kylie's
play.
in 2
I'm like, I
places
can play.
though. So Kylie's got a bit of.
Yeah, I feel like I adapt a little bit to the American because I live in LA and I've
Yeah.
been
You've
here
been there for a while.
20
Yeah.
years or
So
something.
let's hear you
Yeah.
say
Wow. See.
it.
See?
What are you talking about? That's not
You on my team?
What am I saying? Where have I been? What? I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, just notice that all you guys are saying is that meditate
Oh, is that what
Not
we're
like
saying?
that. That like
And
No.
in the Hebrew language, the word for nation is
Oh, okay.
You can tell a lot about a nation if you hear their Every nation has one. We have this like stopgap measure, right? When we don't know what we want to say. And Hebrew, they go ve. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you mean AUM?
Oh, you what? Did you just spell that AUM?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. She just did.
What? I bet you guys did
sure
not
I've
know this
seen
about
it.
each other. You are questioning your whole relationship if you should even be on a podcast together. AUM.
Every second.
I'm sure I've seen it spelt like that. No.
Have you?
We just spell it UM.
Yes, you am.
I do a couple
Have
M's.
you-
Wait,
No,
wait,
so
hold
when
on
you
a second.
say-
Hold on, wait. There's two things going on here. There's the like blah blah blah, and then there's the
Yeah.
Oh,
So the OHM?
right, which is what
Mm.
the second thing I believe you said, Folly. And I think
Yeah,
that's maybe where we lost you a little bit, Amanda.
right.
The
Yeah, because okay. So let me answer you this then. Okay, right. So let me go back to this. So
So you just did it.
Yeah, that was
shut up.
Yeah, Amanda, you've said it like 4 times. I'm like, what's she
Yeah.
not grasping here? You just did
Okay,
it.
I'm just catching my breath. Yeah, I'll be back.
So you can tell a lot about the culture if you're attuned to sound frequencies. And it's a lot of us like to listen to languages. You know, French has a beautiful sound. I don't look at that. That's not what I look at. I really look at the undertones, and the undertones is always in the pauses. Because every time you're not sure what you want to say, and you're kind of grasping, you want to fill that space. What are you filling it with? You're filling it with your breath, making a sound. That's what is. So it's the sound of creation. That's what is. So when a culture uses an sound, which is the sound of their creation, it tells you a lot about who they are as a culture if you are attuned to that frequency. And what that actually means, again, I can't, that's something that you can't really, I don't know, it's kind of like a code. It's kind of like I'm an antenna and I hear it and I download what that kind of, but just to show your ears that it actually sounds different, and every culture has their own. And, you know, Amanda, you're talking about all the different accents. When I spent my summers in England, my cousins all spelt it ERM. Like, I thought it was UM, and they're like,
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what's that? There's an
Yeah.
R in there? How did an R get into there? It's And they're like,
But it's yeah, that's correct. But I'll tell you something funny though. I actually have that tattooed on my arm. The sound of creation. The sound of creation. That's one of my tats.
That's awesome.
Aw.
That is awesome.
Purely for that reason.
Wow.
You know, it's funny because as we talk about sound, I often in my healing sessions, you know, you're supposed to speak softly and be like very like calming. That's not who I am. It's like I can't. And so when I try to just be calm and speak softly, I literally, it will last like a second and I'll have to say to the person, I'm so sorry. I don't have that calming voice. I am loud. I sit in my masculine. It just comes out, but I promise you it'll be good. But I'm so conscious of that. And, you know, it is about stepping into the authenticity. Be who you are, even in your voice. Your voice tells you everything. And when you talked about how, like on Instagram, you know, or on social media, you'll see people speaking a certain way, and it's like, I can't do that for the life of me. Like, it will take everything for me to step in that inauthentic space. Where if I'm just like, you know what, this is how it is. Like, I'm truly myself. It flows so naturally. And so it is so important to really honor that, because it's everything. It's like, it's your true authenticity, the trueness of who you are. Why would you ever want to be anything other than that?
Right. Like, think about a baby, right? When a baby cries, they're not doing this like, ha, ha, right? They're not trying to make their voice sound pretty. They're like, ah, you know? And but babies are so cute. You just want to hug them. You want to kiss them. You want to, you know, smush them. And they're not pretending to be anything they aren't. And their voices are growly and grovelly. So when did we start thinking that we have to adapt and change? And when we do, our voices change with that. And you can tell. You can tell. You listen to old recordings, WhatsApp voice notes that you sent your friends a couple of years ago. You can really track your evolution based on your voice. And
it's interesting. Just yesterday, I needed to set up a voicemail message on my phone, you know, a greeting, because I got a new phone. And I listened back to it and I went, oh, I sound different. And I really, you know, like Amanda was saying, you know, it feels like to me being in this, you know, with all of these beautiful ladies and sort of, you know, the shifts in my energy. I went, wow, I sound like a different person. It's like I didn't even recognize myself. So it's very cool. That's something everyone can do. Go and listen to things that you've recorded and record yourself
Right.
now and see how different you are. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
I
funny
used
when
to
you
stop
say
myself.
about,
Yeah.
I was just so say, when you talk about how babies cry, I always used to
Mm.
say that my daughter, she used to cry. Well, I used to say it like this, but probably I used to say she used to cry as a baby. She used to cry from. She used to pull that. I used to say she used to pull that cry from her, like, let's just say from her like base chakra, like in that area. It used to come up from somewhere deep, and it would come out. And my middle son, I used to say that I was going to hire him out to a funeral parlor, because he just used to weep when he was a baby. He would just weep. It was the strangest thing to hear a baby weep. I said I'd hire him out to go and walk in front of the hearse, because he
Oh.
would just But you know
They make
what? When I look
therapy
at it,
funds for that.
it's their personality. You know, but it's like their personality. I mean, not that he's a weeper or she's like, you know, but like her voice used to come from deep down inside her and just come out. And he's very much how he is, he's very much in tune with a lot of things, and with like a lot of energetically wise, he's very in tune like that. My first baby, he used to cry in the beginning, and then he kind of like never cried at all, which is kind of weird. But I don't
You
know.
know, it's really interesting that you say that, Amanda, because when my daughter was born, even still today, I have no issue with her crying. But I'm not joking. The moment my son exited my womb, it almost makes me have physical pain listening to him cry.
Cry, really?
Yeah, just the
Wow.
sound and the tone and the pitch. He's got a very present voice. Like, he's just naturally quite loud, and I don't say loud in a negative way, but he's just very present when he speaks. And then he's like quite a quiet little guy, so when he talks, like, you listen. But when he's upset or really emotional, even just generally talking to him, you can feel the emotion come out of his little body. And it's like, oh, buddy, you don't need to cry, you don't need to cry. But yeah, like as a baby, he wouldn't even start, and I would have to go to him, or I would have to immediately soothe him, because I could not listen. I don't know what it was. It's interesting.
I have a thought on that.
Yeah. I used to plait like my boys' hair as well when they were little, until when they got to an age whereby we could cut it and they could think. And my middle son, that's the one who used to cry like he was weeping, because he used to cry getting his hair done. I just couldn't bear the sound of him crying afterwards, so I just let it grow, and it just grew into this big natty afro. And I didn't comb it. I didn't put a comb through his hair until he was when he was probably about 2.5, and then we cut the hair, and it was just this natty hair.
Speaking of hair cutting, because natural digression here.
Yeah.
So in Judaism, with the sacred hair situation, so like if you're cutting coat off, I'm assuming, are you just letting the little girls just grow their hair out, and then it's a transformation? Does it get does that affect anything energetically?
No, we cut our hair. We don't treat it like the Sikhs won't cut their hair, right? But we do. We don't have a problem with that. But again, Judaism is so broad. You can meet two Jews that have a completely different cultural information, right? But I'm a Hasidic Jew. So in Hasidic Judaism, we don't cut a boy's hair until he turns 3, because the hair is the code of your sexuality. And sexuality doesn't mean sex. It means your creativity, your flow. So before the age of 3, before a boy would go into the more, learning the Torah, and the girls would go more into because we do segregate. We believe a boy needs to have more feminine energy. He needs to be attached to his mother. So we don't cut his hair, because that free flowing hair is more feminine. Not in look. It's not about the look. It's about femininity and how it flows. And we all have feminine and masculine aspects. So we don't cut a boy's hair in my culture until he's 3, because we want him to spend more time embodying the healthy feminine. Because later on in his life, when it's time for him to be a husband, be a man, we want that coding to be inside of him. We think it's really important. And again, we have laws about men not cutting off their sideburns, because again, the hair code, right? So there's a code for the hair on top of the head, there's a code for the hair on the side of the head, and then there's a code for the beard. And if they're all growing in tandem, it's one of the most beautiful things. So beautiful to see the three flow into one another. And when I say see it, I just mean the way I feel it. It's not visual. It's just kind of how I sense it. But we don't have any issue about cutting hair, because the codes live inside you, right? But a lot of married women, especially in my community, they wear wigs after they get married. I used to, particularly because, well, it's just my community. It's where everyone comes from. It's what we're used to. Also, I got married as a cancer patient. I met my husband while I was a cancer patient. So I was wearing a wig because I was bald, and I just went straight into that. And for some reason, something about it never really sat right with me. It just didn't feel like me. And about 10 years ago, I stopped wearing a wig and started covering my hair with scarves. And everyone's kind of like, why'd she do it? I give a different answer to everybody, mostly because I'm super lazy, and scarves are easy and they're colorful, but really also because once I really tapped into the frequency of these things, it just felt very strange wearing somebody else's sexual and spiritual energy on my crown. That's my crown chakra. It didn't feel right to I don't know, to just put something there. And again, being sensitive to these things, I really felt my energy was different. So did my husband, because he's sensitive to these things as well. I would never have changed the way I chose to dress without going by my husband, because one of our values also as a wife is you should look beautiful. You should. In Judaism, we believe that. We believe you have to take care of yourself and you should look beautiful. And you can be modest and attractive, right? You shouldn't have to cover yourself with a sheet. It's not what we believe in. And so when I was contemplating taking off a wig and wearing a scarf, I had run it by my husband. I would never have done it if he didn't want me to do it. And we thought about it a long time. It wasn't a decision that we did from one second to the next. But what really sealed it for me was when he was on a meditation retreat. And he told me, every time you came up in meditation in that space, in that more spiritually minded space, I always saw you with a headscarf. I didn't see you with a wig. And I was like, if he's seeing my essence in that space and he's seeing it dressed that way, that just feels more right for me. And that kind of let me know that he was really on board. So that was, 10 years ago. But I want to go back to the sound thing, because I remembered what I had wanted to say before, because I don't know when you're releasing this episode, but we're recording this right before the Jewish High Holy Days. So one of the things that happens on the Rosh Hashanah, which is the New Year, the Jewish New Year, is that we blow the shofar, which is the ram's horn. So it's kind of like a call to action, but it's not a call to action as in movement. It's a call to inner action. When you hear the blowing of the ram's horn, it's supposed to stir something inside of you. It's supposed to make you feel something. And one of the things we say right after we listen to the blowing of the ram's horn is, blessed is the nation who knows the secret of the call. And I never really understood that. I just didn't understand what that means. What is the secret of the call? Why is it a blessing? And so going back to what you guys have been talking about with sound and frequency, sound and vibration, souls are not tangible. Our soul, our being, we are vibration. And as we live in this world, our vibration kind of diffuses. It gets caught up in other things. And that's why music is one of the technologies of the sacred. You listen to music, it puts you in a new mood, right? You listen to dance music and all of a sudden you're shaking it out. You were in a terrible mood, but your booty's moving, right? You listen to, I don't know, it's one of the sad songs and you're weeping and you don't even know why, right? And all of that is happening for you. And so knowing the secrets of sound, knowing how to utilize sound to get people to feel something, right? That's why singers, we pay them a lot for their art, because we listen to them and we feel something. There's a reason why we pay a lot of money for our music platforms, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, whatever it is you're using. We're paying a lot of money in sound subscriptions every year. Why is music so important? Basically, everybody you meet, 99.9% of people that you meet today are spending some form of income, right? Some form of money on music, on sound. Because we have this innate knowing that sound and frequencies, they shape our soul. They guide us. So there's something about that. And for me, being able to hear, in someone's voice. So Nadine, you were saying about your son, his cry really gets you. My friend and I were having a conversation about AI and if they're going to take over therapists, right? Because AI can technically be better therapists than people. People botch up. We say the wrong things. AI will never say the wrong thing once it's programmed correctly. And my thought on this is, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea where the world is going to end up, but there's something that I know about humans. We say the word heartstrings. We don't have heartstrings, right? But we say it tugged at my heartstrings. We talk about vocal cords. We speak about ourselves as if we are stringed instruments.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about stringed instruments, you pluck a string, all the other strings start vibrating. That's what resonance is. So when I speak to your heart, first off, all of our tones, Amanda, you were talking about your tone changing on the podcast. Well, yeah, you're surrounded by a bunch of great frequencies. Our voices are all going to entrain with one another. So my vocal cords match your vocal cords. My heartstrings match yours. AI cannot do that. That's one of the miracles and the secrets of people who really understand sound. We're never going to give that up. I mean, AI therapists might say the right thing, but I don't know that they can get you to feel the right thing. And feeling is a currency in this world, because right now the world is operating on the currency of fear, but we operate on the currency of love.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't build a currency unless you're string to string, right? Voice to voice, heart to heart. I don't think computers or AI can ever do that.
No.
And
This
that
whole
brings me back to why
podcast,
it's a praise thing.
right? And so this whole podcast came together based on that frequency of love, right? There is just, I can't even put into words the amount of love that every single one of us here has. Some of us knew each other longer, some for a very short period, but that frequency runs so deep within this group that it's like immeasurable, like indescribable. It's like your greatest part of the day, right? And we all have family and children.
Yeah, true.
And we love our family and we love our
Yeah.
children. But there's just something about this moment where we come together and the energy of it. And so I always talk about how important it is to find that, because with that resonance, that plucking of that one chord and how it affects everything else, if you're surrounding yourself with this kind of love energy and you're in that frequency, you're going to keep emanating that out into the universe. And so while I do agree that I think a lot of people live in that fear, I think a lot of people too are getting out of that and coming into that love frequency. So they're having this awakening in their own way. And I think it's happening a lot quicker than I'll speak for myself, than I ever even thought it would have happened. And so I think with each generation, having people like every one of us who live in that, who want to be in that love frequency, and you teach your children at a younger age. My mother was very loving, but I just don't think she knew to really talk about this kind of stuff. She definitely didn't get that from her parents. And so I think the more we learn from our parents and the more we teach our children, they get there much quicker. And there is a world that I believe that is being created right now where most of us are coming from that love frequency and not really sitting in that fear or sitting in that fear long enough to impact you negatively. And so it's so important to sit and find the people that bring you that love and nurture it, because it changes everything in your life.
So that's the thing though with love, is that love and fear are both currencies, but we also have the law of gravity. Gravity is going to pull you down without you having to work that hard. Fear is a lower vibration.
Right.
Fear is not bad. Low vibrations are not bad, right? On the color spectrum, red is a low vibration. I love red. Red's a great color. But it is a lower frequency than purple, right? Fear is a lower frequency. Love is a higher frequency. They're both currencies, but one you have to choose. And if you're not choosing, you are going to get pulled down. So I do think that the world is changing, but the world has to become conscious that it's not static. You have to choose it. Yeah. And also, Nadina, I wanted to say something before, and I keep losing my train. I just remember what I wanted to say. Why I feel that you may be getting more triggered by your son is because every child has their unique cry, right? They're bringing forth a different resonance. And it's very possible that as he cries, something inside of you, your heartstrings that you've maybe shut down or haven't explored, are forced to come to the surface just by virtue of the sound that he's making. So it's not about him, it's about what he's bringing forth in you.
Yes. Yeah, that wouldn't be entirely off point. You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, you guys, what a beautiful gathering of energies and just love. Okay. Let's do what we always do. Let's close up with our beautiful card pull from Kylie, because I think otherwise we're gonna be here for forever.
We have to do this
We
again,
really
Yana.
could.
Yes, we
Oh,
do
yeah.
need to do this again.
Listen, let me
Yeah.
tell you something, guys. 1 second, Kylie. When Fally and I had our first call.
This doesn't count, Yana. You talk.
No.
This doesn't count.
No. Hold on, stop. I said to her, just so you know, like you're gonna have to come back again. She's like, well, I haven't even
Oh,
been
okay.
on already. But no. But we just, it's a thing. It's a done.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come back. The energy, we need it. So Fally,
Yes.
we appreciate you and we just are so thankful. Okay, Kylie.
I'm just saying we have to beat Daniel with his 3, and we're gonna have her on for 4. Challenge accepted.
Oh,
I love
love
myself
it.
a little competition, but
There
guys,
you
it's
go.
gonna have to be
I've
5.
activated it.
Ah!
Daniel already has me booked for the 4th one next week.
Oh,
Yana, what are
okay.
you doing?
Them
Come
fighting
Let's
words, them
book
are.
in the Come on, we got that. Moonology. I don't know. Yasmin Boland. Thank you, Yasmin Boland. So I pulled these cards. Energy, if you are listening, hi, thank you for joining us. You are very close to achieving your goal. Okay, you're very close to whatever that goal is. Confidence, okay, what is it? Is your key to success. So you are very close. Confidence is going to push you over
Confidence
the
kid,
edge.
right.
Mm.
Nice.
Fake
Use
it
your
till you make
authentic
it.
voice. Be
Yeah.
confident.
Yeah.
Fake it till you
Nice
make
one,
it.
Kylie.
Kylie, you know that tonight is the new moon, right? You're
Is
using the
it
Moonology
really?
desk. Yep, it's the
My
Virgo new
wolf
moon.
skin hasn't activated yet, so I'll
Yeah.
have to pay attention to that. Full moon, howling.
You
But
know-
that's good. Thank you.
I realized too
Reminder.
that we didn't even scratch the surface on what it is.
No.
Yes, we actually didn't. Actually
She
didn't.
doesn't need to. Everybody's gonna listen to this and they're just gonna feel it and know it, and they're gonna
Right.
go to your little like PO box online. They're gonna find you and they're gonna get what they need.
Yeah.
They're gonna sign up for a waiting list for what they don't even know, and they're just gonna be like, I
Exactly.
think
Yes.
Spirit
We're
led
all
me
gonna be
here, and I
there.
have no idea what's coming.
Exactly.
The restraining order
Totally.
application.
Yes, next time we promise to really get into all the magic that you are. So for right now, why don't you let people know where they can find you?
They can find me at fallyklein.com. It's my name, FALLYKLEIN.com. Like I said, there's nothing there. You're going to see a pretty picture of my face and pretty much nothing else. It's a bunch of words that don't say anything about what I do. But if you do go to the homepage, there's a free meditation download. It's good stuff. You get to sign up to my mailing list. I like to send out emails like once a week. You get to know a little bit more about what's going on in my world. And there's always something going on. I never want to pinpoint it to one thing because I don't like being pigeonholed in a box. I had enough of that with my upbringing. So, there's always going to be something and you never really know what to expect. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. This concludes our
Thank
episode,
you.
everybody. Thank you for joining us today. If you are interested in booking a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, a light body activation, or simply just want to say hello, head on over to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. We thank you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we hope you have a beautiful, blessed day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.